This is Dave, the guru, and another tutorial using Gamesalad. In this video, I'm going to show you about the new IAP system in Gamesalad. Now, I'm going to use it testing iOS, but it's all the same whether you're going to go Amazon or Android. So just follow along here, and I've already passed through Amazon inspection, so I know this system works with Amazon no problem, even though I didn't test it using the local applications that you use for testing Amazon. I did get it to work on the store itself. So basically, we're going to go through everything, and let me just show you what I've got going on with this layout here, because I'm going to mirror it in a couple minutes on my iPad. So I want to show you what we're going to be looking at. And we'll just click through a couple of these. Yeah. And so basically what we're going to be looking at is I've got a few different boxes here, and in the light green or lime green are consumable purchases, and in the red are non-consumable purchases. So what we're going to do is in this top boxes here, we're going to be looking at the new table that Gamesalad put in, the purchase table, and we're going to be looking at the states of column 5, which is going to tell us the status of the purchases. And then these 0 boxes here right now, they're going to be the buttons that I'm going to push to actually make the purchase, and the 0 is the attribute that I'm using for the callback, and we'll get into that, what that means in a little bit. And so also on my game level variables that I use to track ads off and coins and things like that. So this would be your total coins, and this would be like your ads off Boolean. And then down here is my table, or your table that you would use to store the current values of the consumables and your non-consumables, so that if the player doesn't have Wi-Fi on, and or the game gets booted backwards when it's in the background for too long, you want to make sure you save these current values so the player doesn't have to go back and restore and do all that kind of stuff. So let's go ahead back, and we're just going to go ahead and look in the let's look in the non-consumable first, because there's a little bit difference between the coding that we're going to add between the consumable and the non-consumable. So in the consumable here, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in the in-app purchase request purchase data. Now, what this is going to do is, let's go right to that table and look over that. So what this is going to do is, this is the new table that comes embedded in every new Gamesalad project that you make for pro users. It may be non-pro too. I don't know about the Amazon stuff that still goes on, but I'm just going to do it for pro users. It'll be the same for non-pro. So we got our purchase table here, and it initially comes set up with 1 row, and we don't need to make any more columns, and we're just going to put things in here. So I added an extra row into this table, and I've labeled it consumable and non-consumable. Now we're only going to be editing the first 2 columns in this table. The rest of this information, the name, the price, the state, this is all going to get filled out by the server when we make that data request, which is the first behavior that we're talking about. So you can go ahead and label these, and then your ID is going to be the same ID that you put into iOS. It's like your SKU for that in-app purchase. I always try to use lowercase, make it real simple for my games. I'll usually just do like the initials of the game, and then I'll put a 1 or a 2 after it. This one's actually 2 because I had to change it because I already bought it, and they don't let you reset. So let me just change that to 2. So I'll actually do like 1, 2, 3, 4, my non-consumables, and I'll set it up that way. So I'll do the initials, and then like non-consumable, consumable, and I'll put like if I game Pocket, I would put PI CS1, but it makes it real easy so that it doesn't get all crazy. So for consumables, we want to come in and we're going to modify this Boolean to true. Non-consumables, of course, we want it to be false, because we're going to be changing that to true. Because it's I'm sorry, we're not changing that to true. Please forgive me. It's not a consumable, it's a non-consumable. That's what this deals with. So we're dealing with true and false. So this is not a consumable, this is a non-consumable, this is a consumable. So that's what that column is. And pay attention to the column 3, 4, and 5, that they're text attributes. So when the specific thing is the state, we're going to be looking at the state of a purchase to trigger other code that we now need to add to execute other things. So we're going to be dealing with text attributes, and that's going to come into play when we make our rules. So let's go ahead back in here, and then we'll start with the in-app purchase request purchase data. This is requesting data from whoever's server, whether it be Amazon, Apple, Google Play, to get the information for the IAPs that we entered in there to fill in columns 3 through 5. So the simplest way to do this is to go ahead, and the start index is going to be row 1, and then in the end index, if you just put -1 in there, it'll automatically do all the columns. So you don't have to put, like if you had 10 things, you don't have to put 10. If you just put -1, it'll automatically index from column 1 to whatever the last column number is. So now the next thing that we need to look at is this callback attribute. And if you've messed around with multiplayer, you're probably pretty familiar with this. You need to have a callback attribute set up. Even if you don't monitor it or use it for any reason, you still need to have this callback put in there. So what I've done here is I've made a self integer in this actor. It can be in your manager, on your purchase scene, or whatever button, or wherever. It can be anywhere you're doing this request purchase data. Now, it's going to give you a feedback from the server. So in other words, you want this naked. You don't want this in any kind of rule or anything. You want this in there basically naked, and basically when the person comes upon the scene, it's going to go ahead and automatically request for data. Now, one of the things that I would recommend is I would put this in a rule if you're going to have like in-game purchases. In other words, while people are playing the game, if they don't go off somewhere, to have this in a rule that when you press this certain thing, and you can make a purchase right there while you're playing the game. Let's say it pauses it, but you would still have a pause screen. I would put something in there to trigger this, because what happened, and I wouldn't put this at the beginning of your game or any other places other than where you make purchases, because what happens is as soon as this behavior fires, right away you get a pop-up dialog that asks you to put in your app ID information. If you're already logged in, it'll ask you to put in your password. To me, that could really scare people, that if they're putting in their password, they're buying something. So you really don't want to have this firing unless the person is actually on the screen or in your store where they're going to start making purchases. All right. So you're going to have a callback. We want this callback, and the 3 modes of the callback are 0, which is default state, means no communications going on. 1 means that it's gotten the feedback, it's touched the server, and that information has come back. Or -1, which means that there was an error somewhere, that it can't touch the server for some reason, whether the person has their Wi-Fi settings off, or they're not in cell range, or there was just an error, it didn't come back. You're going to get a -1, and you can use that -1 feedback from your callback in a rule if you want to say that if attribute, self callback equals -1, you can have a little pop-up box that says, hey, check your Wi-Fi connection to make this purchase, blah, 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 whatever. So that's how we can kind of use the callback function to read stuff, okay, to provide feedback. So let's go ahead and just and I'm displaying, let me just show you, I'm displaying the text, the callback, so we can see if we're getting a connection. And then we got the purchase. So now let's go ahead and just grab, since they've left it in here, I think this will help you. Let's just go ahead and grab the old in-app purchase behavior, even though it's been depreciated. See, it says that right here. So basically, what we're doing here with this whole stuff is basically we've got this new feature where we're calling a request to the server, but then we've got this new in-app purchase buy items behavior, and you've got basically just this product ID window. So basically this whole bottom stuff here we're basically having to do the code for now, where you could have a scene pop up, like this stuff. Basically, what you're going to have to do is code this stuff in there yourself, the whole change attribute function, or a success scene, or a cancel scene, or error scene, which is where we come back to this callback number. You're going to have to do this stuff now in your own code. Okay, so basically we're replacing this stuff. So let's go ahead and look at this first part here, product ID. So basically we've got this new in-app purchase by item. You're basically just going to put your product ID in there, whatever it is. For the particular, this is my non-consumable, so I'm just putting in NC2, which is how I reference, which is my product ID on Apple, and is referenced in that table by its product ID, okay? And when they push the button, it's going to make a request to buy the item. Now, where we would just do a change attribute in here and then let the change attribute at the game state change, and then maybe we'd save it to a table, all that. We're going to do something similar to that, but we have to code it now. So let's go ahead down and look at this confirm purchase here that I've set up. So basically what I've got here is I'm using a text expression, because remember, as I showed you, cell 5, which is column 5, excuse me, cell, whatever cell it is, 1 or 2, okay, whatever row it is, we want its text, and that's the state. And there's three modes of the state that it can be. It can be unpurchased, pending, and purchased. So those are the 3 text attributes, or 3 ASCII2 text that we'll be looking for. So what we're going to do is we're going to just do a text expression. So we're going to do a text, come down and select text expression, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do table cell value, the purchase table, and of course we're going to do row 2. That was my non-consumable, was in row 2, and then we want to look at column 5. And in column 5, you want to make sure that this is. For some reason, when I did contains, it would fire the code. So maybe I'm misunderstanding something with text, but when I switched it to is, it was more solid. So I'm going to suggest using is. When that is purchased, okay, you want this, the exact, everything spelling right and everything is purchased, we're going to go ahead and do what we used to do up here. We're going to change the attribute, so my game level attribute adds off to true. And what we're also going to do is, since we need to have a separate table like I talked about, where we're going to store the player's current state for stuff like coins and this, because of the fact that Wi-Fi goes off, especially for coins, because that value can go up and down, and you want to make sure you're continually saving that information, so that if the game sits in the background for a while and iOS boots it off because it needs more room, then the player is going to be starting the game back up. So you want to make sure, any and all relevant data is being saved in your game, like other stuff, especially stuff people have purchased. So this is what we're going to be referencing at the start of our game to fill in all our game level attributes in relation to IAP stuff. We're going to go off the stuff that we've saved in a separate table. So basically let me close this up so it doesn't get in the way. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to watch for that condition, and then we're going to change our attribute, and then we're going to come in and we're going to go to our table, and it's row 1, column 2, and I want to change that to true. So once they purchased it, I'm going to go ahead and give it to them, make sure that instantly gets changed, so I don't have to fire a whole bunch of stuff where stuff's only changing when the game starts over again. So I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of for them so that they get the purchase right away. And then I'm going to go ahead and store the value to my table. So now what we've got here is, I like to do with my tables, 0.03 of a second is 1 code cycle. So what I like to do is let everything fire through in a code cycle, run to completion, and then save my table. That way I make sure all the data is guaranteed to get in there. And so that's how we do a consumable. So let's go ahead and look at a non-consumable. And the same thing here. I just put these two things in there. You only need one of these in-app purchase request purchase data. I just copied that actor and made the modification I needed in this one. You only actually need this particular thing in one place. It can be in, a manager on your in-app purchase scene or whatever. You don't actually need that in two places. Okay. And then we don't need to display this either. And so there we've got our consumable purchase, CS1. Okay, same thing, touch is pressed. And then what we do is come down and we're doing the same thing here with our table cell value, but we're going to be looking at row 1 now. So we're going to change our table to purchase table, row 1, column 5, because we're looking at a different purchase now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and I've set it up so they get 100 coins on this purchase. So we're going to do the math. So whatever coins they've accumulated or already have, we're going to make sure we don't wipe that away. So we're going to do game.coins plus 100. Okay. And then also in our table storage, we're going to go ahead and do a value added with the table cell value. It's the same expression as this, except we're calling on the current table cell value of the coins. And then we're going to take that and add 100 to it and store that. Now, when we get into the timer here, we're going to be adding one more thing for a consumable item, and that's the in-app purchase consume item. And what this behavior is it sends a message back to the server to say, it basically validates the purchase. So in other words, when the person gets a consumable item and it's all been logged in, then we're going to go ahead and send a signal back to the server to say, yes, this item has been purchased. They got it. They consumed it. Okay? And we're going to go ahead, because let's say why we need to do this is what happens is that if they make the purchase and they go off of it and it's in pending, and then they come back to it again and it shows as purchased when you do the call, you want to make sure that they can't buy it again until that's been consumed or been purchased. So this does is when everything's fired through, then we fire back and say, okay, they made that purchase and we're going to go ahead and let them purchase again. And this is how you're able to keep stacking and adding coins. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to do put the product ID for that. And then we're going to go ahead in and do our IAP storage table. We're going to save that after one code cycle. So it's the same thing. Now you've got to make sure you can put this consume item in here. If you don't, they'll only be able to purchase this item once. Okay. All right. So now let's go ahead and let's just hide Gamesalad for a minute here. And we're going to go ahead and look at my iPad, which I'm mirroring right here. And we're going to go ahead and do the IAP test. I don't have a splash screen in here, so it'll go through a black screen for a minute while it all loads. So now we're going to see all the information on this coming into play. We can see in the predefined purchases table that everything is unpurchased. We can see here I'm drawing the callback for the call data, and it's 1. And then you can see here in my variable states, this is the coins, and this is the ads that were false, and the coins total are 0. And these are our table references for saving that data permanently in here. So now let's go ahead and make a purchase on the unpurchased non-consumable for ads. Say we're going to turn ads off. So let's go ahead and push that. And you can see now that it's changed to pending, so we're in the middle of the purchase here. Now I'm already logged into my account. If I wasn't logged in, it's going to ask me, it would ask me for my login in this beginning state. So it's up to you whether you want to have this in other places in your game, because if somebody's not logged into their in-app purchase, as soon as they boot up your game to the first screen, you're going to get a pop-up asking them to log into their account and for in-app purchases and stuff, and enter their app ID, and that could unnerve some people. So you might want to kind of keep that login that I showed you, the getting data in your purchase area, That way, they know that's what's going on in there. They don't think you're trying to do something shady. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to see it says pending. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy it. And it's going to tell us we were successful. We're going to go OK, and it's going to change to purchase. And while you did, you saw that my variable at the game level updated and my table updated. So now let's come over here and let's do the consumable. So we're going to press that. We're at pending. We're going to go ahead and buy it. And then we're going to hit OK. And so now we're going to see that we've collected our coins. We've got 100 coins. And now what you're going to see is it's gone back to unpurchased. That's what we want, because this is a one-time thing. If you hold this at purchased, then you won't be able to press it again. They won't be able to buy it again. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to go back and say we want to buy something else again. We're going to go ahead and push it now. We're going to buy some more coins. We're going to go ahead and OK. And we're going to see it's added to the coin state double what we bought. And you can just keep going with this, purchasing over and over and over again. So these are the basics of the new IAP system. This is how I've come up with doing it. I'm sure that other people will come up with some other clever ways of doing this stuff. There's with the new system, there's a lot more ways to give you a little more power over how you're kind of presenting and doing things with your in-app purchases. And actually, this stuff is a really good start into multiplayer, because in multiplayer we deal a lot with these kind of callback things in behaviors, and it's got to get integrated into your code in a lot of different places. So this is like a good first kind of toe in the water for people who are interested in the future getting into multiplayer. As Gamesalad opens up to become more powerful, which we all want, it's going to require us to do a little more study and a little more work, but it's worth it to have the extra capabilities that Gamesalad's given us. You can find me on the forums under the name Lost Oasis Games. This is Dave, the Guru. I'll see you in the next video.